Hey, fellow music lovers. Thanks again for checking out our podcast.
I do not like the way you said lovers.
Really?
You already changed it. Wow. Lovers.
I'm composed. You're
Okay,
not.
Go ahead.
Hey, fellow music aficionados.
It's getting better. Hey, welcome everyone.
Oh, man. Was that live?
That was live, man. That was
Wow.
quite the intro, right?
Starting with a bang.
Welcome everyone to another episode of When Records Ruled, the podcast where we share our love of rock music and pop culture from the 70s and 80s and take a few B-side tracks down memory lane along the way. So grab those liner notes and down that fresh packet of watermelon pop rocks because it's time to hit the play button. I'm your host, David Norris, and joining me on this flashback musical road trip are my good friends Brian Strom and Lance Schwartz. How are you guys?
The rocks are popping. I can't talk very well.
Well, Lance, don't drink that Coke with those Pop Rocks.
You're going to die, man. You're going to die.
All right. We're coming at you live today. Kind of.
Kind of.
Wow, the phone lines are lighting up.
Wow. As live as we ever get.
Yes.
Hey, today's episode, we are talking concerts. We'll cover some of our favorite, most memorable, and some differences about concerts in the 70s and 80s versus modern day. Are we ready, guys?
We're ready.
Let's get to it then. It's all things concerts. All right. First question for you guys. What was your first concert and what do you remember about it? Lance.
What do I remember about it, Dave?
Well, what was
That
your first concert?
1979.
Ooh.
1979. Were you guys born yet?
I was
Oh, yeah.
9 years old.
9 years
I
old.
was not going to concerts.
I was 8.
Yeah, it was a big one. Triple bill.
True.
Blackfoot.
Oh.
I'm starting at the low end.
Okay.
So they opened.
Okay.
Then the Scorpions came out.
Yes.
Nice.
Then Uncle Ted came out.
Wow.
Nugent.
The Nuge, Scorps, and Blackfoot.
Wow.
Tell you what I remember most about it was the volume. It was
Oh.
ear splitting. I mean, when we maybe get into the what's different about the 80s versus today, man, or the 80s, 70s,
Yeah, right.
the volume was incredible. My ears rang for 3 days after that concert. It hurt. It really
Yeah.
hurt.
And
Yep.
of course, that's the days before people would even wear earplugs.
I don't think they even invented
Probably
earplugs
not.
yet.
No. Everyone was deaf.
Yeah.
So permanent hearing loss is my legacy from that show.
What was that?
Permanent. Well, good one,
Speak
Dave.
up,
Good one. Good one. What else do I remember?
Tarzan? Did he Tarzan across?
He did. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Wore the loincloth, the whole thing.
It's so awesome.
And I remember walking around to the back of the stage while he was playing. And I remember a point where Nugent shows were very, he was very energetic on stage in those days. And he came to the back of the stage and he literally kind of collapsed and they put a blanket over him. And yeah, I don't know, exactly what was going on. It wasn't drugs because Uncle Ted doesn't do
He
drugs.
does not.
But I do vividly remember that. I remember from the Scorpions. I think that was when Love Drive came out.
Mm-hmm.
Good song. And then the harmonica in Train. That was their Blackfoot
Right.
big hit. So it was a terrific show from a music standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
All three legit bands. And who's still going today? Uncle Ted is on
He
his.
is. And you and I saw Ted Nugent.
Yeah, that's right.
And that was the only concert I've ever been to where they opened the show with the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's right too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uncle Ted keeping it patriotic.
he did.
So what was your first concert, Brian?
My first concert was Loverboy.
Ooh.
Except we
Except
went.
open? Oh, sorry.
No, we went to see the opening act, which was Dokken.
Yeah.
This was in 85,
Yeah.
86. Under Lock and Key came out,
Nice.
and me and my friends and brother and brother-in-law, we were all big Dokken fans. And so that's what we went for. And we went there, and it was in an amphitheater at Great America, which was an amusement park. And after Dokken played, we left.
You did?
Wow.
Yep.
So you didn't get to see Loverboy?
We did not see Loverboy. We were that cool.
You guys were too cool for Loverboy.
You like made a pact. You're like, we are not seeing
Yeah, we were here
Loverboy.
to see Dokken.
You were true headbangers,
Yeah.
weren't you?
Well, by that time we were. And,
Yeah.
and you know, I liked Loverboy initially, and then it was like, nah, blah. I mean, looking back now, I wish I would have stayed for the concert.
Yeah.
But yeah, we streamed out of there. So that was my first concert. The thing I remember most about it was just how loud it was, like you said, but not necessarily like too loud, but I just remember that bass thumping on my chest.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pretty impressive. You were like, wow, I can feel the music.
Yeah. That was one of my first impressions too. If I don't remember what the opening act was, but my first concert was Rat in '86. They were just finishing up their Invasion of Your Privacy tour.
Okay.
But I do remember that feeling of like, wow, I can feel the notes, the bass, the drums, and just going, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that tour, I believe Bon Jovi was opening for Rat. Maybe they didn't make it their way up there, but
he made his way up there later.
Okay.
Because I did see him later, but I don't think many of the early acts where I lived had big opening names, opening acts, because it was
just
tough
a local,
to travel.
get a local band.
It's tough to travel up to Alaska.
Yeah.
As what, because it's not just a stop on the lower 48 tour here. I mean, you got to make a concerted effort to get up there with all the trucks and whatever rigging they had.
I wonder if bands ended tours up there a lot. Like that was the last show, or
I want to say, yeah.
Because it would make sense.
Because
we'll do all this, and then we'll make one big haul over there, and or to Hawaii. And
I want to say Journey did that one year, and they sold out like 2 shows. They added a third, sold it out, added a fourth, and sold that out.
Wow.
So I'm guessing it was probably the end of their.
So basically, everybody in Alaska saw the show.
Yeah, except me. I wasn't really into them at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember too watching Stephen Pearcy change shirts like 5 times, and I was like, why are you just saying we don't care what you're wearing? But I remember like one of the shirts had like big Marilyn Monroe on it, and I mean, I'm like, why is this guy changing shirts so often? I mean, you getting that sweaty up there or something? Or are you just doing it for a fashion statement? But I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah,
loved it.
Good.
Are you sure that the stop in Alaska wasn't just a quick stop before they go to Russia? Because you can see Russia from Alaska.
Yeah,
right?
yes, you can.
I could almost see it from my house. No, I can't.
That was pretty good.
No. All right. Do you guys have a best opening act concert memory? We'll start with Brian this time.
I've seen a lot of good acts. One I was really impressed was I saw Eddie Money open for Pat Benatar. And I was a big Eddie Money fan. And so I was really impressed with his show. Big fan of the No Control album, and he played a ton of that. So that was probably one of my top opening acts, besides like a Stadium Monsters of Rock thing or whatever, but just as a opening band. Yeah, I'd say Eddie Money.
I have more of just a memory, not like hey, there's the best opening act, because we have a later question kind of dealing with my better like opening act that kind of blew me away. But Richard Marx opened up for Night Ranger when I saw him in Alaska. So that was kind of a bigger name, I guess. But during the act, I saw something fly up and like hit one of the guitarists, and he just went down.
Wow.
And then he came out a little while later with a big bandage on his head. He got hit by a bottle, like full on, like smacked.
This is Richard Marx?
No, his guitarist, Richard Marx, his guitarist. So he, see him kind of stumble off, and a roadie help him off, and he comes back on, and Richard was pissed, rightfully so.
Yeah,
he was like, "Well, it's great. Guitarist got hit in the butt, head with the bottle, but oh well, I guess we'll keep on rocking for you. Just kind of like just wanting to really give it to whomever did that. But he's playing nice to the crowd.
I've seen a video of Steve Perry going off on the crowd after Neil Sean got hit in the head with a bottle, and blood dripping down.
Wow.
And Perry just unleashed a tirade of obscenities and basically said, "Keep it up. We're not going to keep playing." Something to that effect.
Wow.
Don't really see bottles at concerts anymore, do you?
Nope.
Kind of purposely so, right? It's plastic or
And they
cans.
take the lids.
Yep.
They open your cans. You know.
So originally when we were
reason.
talking about this question too, like the best memory you had opening, I was actually thinking the other way too, like, hey, the opening of the concert. And so I had one, the same concert actually when Night Ranger came out. It's all dark and backlit. They're walking up kind of steps in the back and it's all smoky. So you can kind of see their silhouette through like all the smoke. And then You Can Still Rock in America starts like, you know, and it was just like, oh, this is just the best.
Mm-hmm.
It was super awesome. And then kicking in with that, the rest of the song. But that just like made a mental picture in my brain.
Yeah.
So it was good.
I've seen some other bands do something like that too. Seen that silhouette.
Yeah.
I remember Sammy Hagar doing that, walking along the back and doing stuff that you could tell it was him.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. But as far as like an opening of a show, like the concert, and you and I saw this with Van Halen on the Bounce Tour in 95.
Yes. Why didn't I think of this one?
They did the Seventh Seal. And in the beginning of that song, they have the Tibetan monks doing a thing.
Ooh.
Tibetan monks happened to be in town in Minneapolis at the same time. They got the Tibetan monks out there on stage to do the intro to that song and they were going for a few minutes.
Yeah.
The crowd is just going nuts. I mean, you know, how all these rockers out there just going nuts to Tibetan monks was
just chanting.
Where do you see that?
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy.
That was cool. And there's a video that exists of that too.
Yeah. And one of the monks just goes back and sits down on the drum riser and watches the first song.
They didn't give
I don't know if
instructions
he didn't know where to go or whatever, but he just kind of sat down and
He was exhausted from his performance.
The story is they didn't really tell him what to do after, and he didn't know where to go. It's like, I'm just going to watch the show from here. Thank you.
Sit down.
That would be awesome.
Best opening act. This one you're going to find kind of weird because it was a recent opening act, recent show that I've been to within the last 5 years. It was Firehouse.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. They opened for Warrant, which they do an awful lot. And this was like a free New Year's Eve show at a casino in Green Bay. And my brother-in-law and I went, thought, oh, this would be kind of fun. Man, the guitarist in Firehouse, excellent. Just blew me away. And the lead singer still has the voice. He, sounds just like he did, unless it was backing tracks or something, but it sure didn't sound like it. So I really enjoyed them and would love to go see them again. Not opening for Warrant because I didn't think Warrant was really that great.
I just saw Firehouse last year.
You did?
Yeah. They were opening for, I can't remember what. Must have been at a Rib Fest. But Dave and I saw them early 2000s.
Yeah.
And of, the 5 bands playing, they were maybe 4 or 3. And I too was blown away by them. I was never a fan of them.
Yeah, same here.
You hear the stuff on the radio, but live, they were so tight and they just sounded awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Kind of reminds me of the Hoobastank show.
Oh yeah. Opening up for Everclear? Actually opening up for Living Color.
Living Color.
Who opened up for Everclear.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about Hoobastank except for the one song, and the rest of their stuff is nothing like it. And they really rocked. They were pretty good.
Yeah.
Probably the best band of those 3 that night.
Yeah.
So that's my best opening act, best opening concert memory. I really thought Rush's intros, they have these videos. One of them was kind of animated dinosaur stomping on the ground, but they had the sound system, boom, boom, and this dinosaur keeps coming closer and closer. And all of a sudden, it lets out this big roar, and then they rip into whatever the opening song was. And then another time that I saw them, it was a humorous take. They were in a kind of a Oompa polka band, playing Rush tunes, and they're all
This is the
old.
video before the concert.
Before the concert.
Wow.
It was just hilarious. It's like a 5 to 7 minute video, and everybody's just cracking up, and you're so intently watching that you don't notice that the band's walking on
walking out.
stage.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, there
It's a
they
good
are.
diversion.
Yeah. So
Diversion tactic.
they're not a big build-up hype. It's just fun,
Right.
you know, and a lot of self-deprecating sort of humor in it too. the guys in Rush seem like kind of normal dudes.
Yeah.
You know?
But they're always in a hurry. I don't know.
Yeah. Just rushing
man.
around.
I should really cut that joke out. All right. Closest to the stage you've been.
I've been leaning on the stage.
For what show was that?
Sammy Hagar. This was in a casino. I had tickets way on the side, and there was a walkway in front of the stage of 5 or 6 feet. And as soon as the concert started, people just started walking up there. So I walked right up to the stage, and the whole stage, I was leaning right on the stage. I was getting high fives from Sammy. Michael Anthony was
No
there.
way.
Came in. He was there. I mean, he'd be playing right in front of me. I mean, his shoes. I mean, I could grab his legs and trip him if I wanted to.
Thankfully you didn't.
I did not, but that was
That might have got you removed from the front
that
row.
might have.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, that was
Tie
pretty
shoelaces
awesome.
together. Wow.
Yeah.
That was actually another Sammy concert, I think, that we were all at. We were
Yeah.
in the 7th row. I think that's
Probably
probably his,
third row.
was it the third
I
row?
think it was a third row. But yeah, anyway,
Yeah, you're right. Close enough to get sprayed by Cabo Wabo.
we did some
Mm.
tequila. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. In my mind, I was thinking like, how close of a seating have I gotten?
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Those festival ones where you could just walk up, I'd probably been about that close to some other concerts way back in the day.
Yeah, way back
before
in the
they
day.
started putting seats down there.
I saw Striper one time, and I was 15 or 16, and it was general admission. And I remember working my way up to the front, and Oz Fox, guitarist, he was like in my face, and he had so much hair, and he's rocking, and that was pretty fun. And then I got out of there. It's just no fun being up that close into general admission. You're just getting pushed around.
Yeah.
and so-
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little later
All
when
right.
we talk about worst concert
There you go.
experiences.
Yeah.
You get a little concerned for your safety at a certain point,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Closest to the stage I've ever been. I've got a lot of close to the stage memories, but been in the front row a couple times. The first time was for Journey down here at the Civic Center. And we somehow ended up with some last minute tickets. I think the band released some maybe fan club tickets or something, and we scooped them up, and was literally making eye contact with Neil Sean the whole time, which was really cool to watch him play. And then another time I was out at a casino also, and was in the front row for Boston. Just right next to Tom Scholes playing, which was another really fun experience to see him play. There's a different, definitely a different feel when you can see them working the fretboard and the sounds coming out, and
It's a little surreal, isn't it?
it really
when
is.
you can see exactly what they're playing versus 40 feet back and you kind of just see them moving around.
You see more people,
Yeah.
when you're back.
Yeah.
Except when you're up front, you're like, wow, what's the crowd doing? You
Right.
turn around
Yeah.
and what's going on? Oh, they're doing the wave? What? Oh, wow.
What? There are other people here
I
on
know,
the show?
right?
I thought this was just for me. So those two were the closest I've been, but actually probably not the most memorable of the close shows. I was in the 5th row on the For Those About to Rock tour for AC/DC.
Oh, nice.
And that, to watch Angus, and certainly watch his playing, but just him moving around and doing the Chuck Berry move and all that was probably the most fun I had up front.
That's got to be one of those guitarists, maybe similar to Eddie, who just has endless energy.
Mm-hmm.
He's just like constantly moving, and he's just running.
Yeah.
And his neck must be very long.
Yeah.
I don't know. After all those years.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
muscles.
thought of, you're talking about Neil Sean. I've seen him 2 times, but I've never seen him in Journey. Bad English,
Yeah.
opened for Whitesnake.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw him in with Paul Rogers. He's playing guitar with Paul Rogers doing a Muddy Waters tribute.
Really?
Yep. And they opened for Steve Miller Band.
Yep.
So, yeah, I've seen him 2 times, but never in Journey.
All right. Have you missed a concert you really wanted to go to?
Dave, why don't you start this one?
Okay. I have 2 of them.
Okay.
And one of them involves you.
I know. That's why I wanted you to tell
Because it's probably the one that hurts more because it was Nirvana.
Yeah.
And I don't remember all the circumstances, but Brian was out of town or working or something, and I needed to go get tickets by a certain time, like when they opened. And I didn't remember until a couple hours after the drugstore or whatever who was releasing them got open, rode my bike over there. And by the time I got there, very few seats were left, and they were like obscured view only, like majorly obscured view.
Yeah.
And I'm like, suck.
They're just shoegazers anyway. Who
yeah,
cares?
That's right, yeah. And I had to look it up. It was in '93. I think they played at the Roy Wilkins Auditorium.
Yeah.
And there's video that exists if you ever want to watch what we missed.
So we could, that was going to be my biggest miss.
Yeah.
So I'm with you on that.
Sorry, man. It still hurts.
Yeah.
My other one was
Did I
go ahead.
did I punch you at all or no? No, never mind. It was okay.
Probably should now. Because there's no chance of seeing him now.
That's right.
The other one was when the Pixies had a reunion in 2004 after they'd been split up for like 21 years. And I think I tried to maybe convince one or both of you to go. And I'm like, I'll skip it. And turned out to be like a really good, this was like the kickoff to their reunion tour. And I should have just gone by myself. This was actually right when the technology just came out to have like a recording truck there. Mm-hmm. So you could pick up a CD of the show right after the show.
Yeah.
And those recordings, they finally released them too. They're on Spotify and other services. So you can go back and listen to that show. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, oh man, I should have just seen them.
Yeah. I remember those.
They don't have the original lineup anymore. So
that was kind of a short trend of picking that up.
The technology
the concert. Yeah.
Now you can download them.
Right.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of artists that will sell Springsteen for sure. I've downloaded a couple shows of his that I've attended.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think the one, Lance, when you went to see Metallica not too long ago, they broadcast that concert live on Pandora. I listened to the concert he was at.
Wow. I remember that, and you saying, man, I should have gone.
I should have gone.
So there's another one.
Could have been a stadium show for you, Dave.
Yes.
How long you got for my answer?
Wow.
Got a whole bunch of them.
Well, how about your top 2?
So I had tickets to see Journey on the Departure tour.
Oh.
And I got these tickets from my neighbor who worked at the box office at the Met Center in Bloomington. So they were really excellent seats right next to the stage.
That's a pretty good contact to have, by the way.
It was awesome. That's how I got the 5th row for AC/DC for those about to rock. And as it turns out, I got sick. I mean, fever. No. I was going with my cousin. Well, I had to call my cousin and tell him, well, you better find a friend that wants to go to Journey. He can have my ticket. And after the show was over, my neighbor asked, well, how was the show? I'm like, I didn't go. I got sick. Oh, that's too bad. Here are the backstage passes that I had for you, too. She kept them. Yeah. So that's probably the worst missed opportunity.
You're not going to top
it. Yeah.
I think Lance has the best story there.
When I was living in Washington, and this was kind of when Pearl Jam, Soundgarden were just starting to get big.
Oh.
And there was going to be a free concert downtown somewhere. And it was going to be Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, a couple other bands. And I was going to go to that, and it got canceled like the day of, kind of a thing, because they were just too worried about the crowds at that time. So, and this was in Seattle, so it would have been just monstrous. So that was a bummer.
I thought you might have mentioned when you heard U2 was going to be performing in San Francisco, and you thought it was
that too.
Yeah. You thought it was a joke.
I thought it was a joke.
It's the one they filmed for Rattle and Hum.
In the movie, They were announcing on the radio, like, U2's down here, they're going to play some songs and blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, come on. First of all, I don't even know they were in town, you know?
Yeah.
So,
No one announced
and now
it.
they're going to just do a little free show for somebody. Yeah, whatever.
They're too big to do stuff free show wherever.
And the thing was weird about it. It was like the middle of the day, you know, so it wasn't, you know, it didn't sound like anything real. It's probably midweek, middle of the day. Yeah.
Not very legit.
Yeah. I forgot about that one. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah. There you go.
That was probably in 87 or so. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Next question. Most memorable concert, which doesn't have to be the best one.
Probably best and memorable was probably the first time I saw Van Halen on the 5150 tour. So this was in 86. They sold out 4 shows in San Francisco at the Cow Palace. I got tickets for the first night because, of course, I had no idea they would sell out 3 more. So I got those right away.
It's the best. It was the best night.
Yes, it was. It was right. And they ended their tour there. So that was on Halloween too, on top of that.
Oh, wow.
So I do remember the stage having jack-o'-lanterns all over the stage. At different points in the show, you know, someone would throw a mask up on and Michael Anthony would put the mask on and stuff like that. So that was cool. But just the energy of that show, the excitement, like I said in a previous episode, they ruined every other concert I went to after that as far as energy for a show. That was pretty amazing. Sammy up in the lights up above and running on those tracks and stuff.
That's right.
Just wow. It was pretty incredible. The 4th show, just before that show, Eddie cut his hair.
Oh.
And Alex shaved his head. There's some sort of bet, something happened, and so
Haircut and a
haircut,
shave.
So yeah, you'll see those out there.
Wow. I go back and find some videos now.
Yeah, you could.
Mine was actually one we both went to, and that was to see the Smashing Pumpkins at the free concert, the Aquatennial Block Party in Minneapolis.
I have that in another category of your questions, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to ruin it for you by talking about it.
Yeah, no,
now.
go ahead.
Well, I can wait.
No, go.
We can talk about it.
You
then.
go.
Okay. So a swarm of the entire state, what it seemed like anyway, estimated 100,000 to 125,000 people show up for this free concert because it's free. And it's the Smashing Pumpkins with almost the entire original
At their
lineup.
height.
At their height. Yeah.
Their peak.
Yeah. So it was just insane the amount of people that were there. And we didn't really even get that close. But we had crowd surfers, you know, from behind us who were like all of a sudden like, you know, battering us in the back of the head or getting kicked in the back of the head. So it was just insane. So
we were far away, but we were pretty close because you could turn around and look and say people were way
That's true.
back.
Yeah.
So
it seemed like we were a couple 100 yards back from the stage, but there was still, at least probably that behind us until we decided like, oh, let's keep venturing a little farther back so you don't get, you know, accidentally kicked or something. Yeah. And just even the crowd movement this far back as we were was just insane.
It was, that concert, you could not pay attention to the show because you were worried about saving your life.
Yes.
Because it was just constantly moving. And like I remember telling you, I mean, there was this high school girl that was in front of me and the crowd is moving and she just looked up at me with this fear in her eyes. And I told her, I said, just hold on to me. I'll get you out of here. And she grabbed onto me and I walked her out. But she was just scared to death.
Yeah.
And it was scary because you couldn't watch the show.
Not a fun way to attend a show, really, but certainly memorable.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
Yeah.
And I remember we got back far enough to closer to a building where it thinned out and then watched most of the rest of the show there, I think. But it was so echoey back there because it was just bouncing. The sound was just bouncing off buildings and stuff. And so it was like, it's so hard to hear. So we just bolted.
What do you want for free, guys?
I know, exactly.
I saw a picture of that concert because it came up as an anniversary not too long ago.
Like an aerial?
Yeah. And you could kind of see where we were because I could still picture a lamppost and stuff where we were because people were climbing that and everything. But I
remember kind of finding a hump in the parking lot to stand on so we could get up a little higher for a while until we got pushed off of it or whatever. But Lance, how about you?
Hey, before I get into this, guys, I just got a text from a listener It says,
Wow.
Listen to part of your first podcast. Learn things about you I never knew. Pretty cool. So somebody's listening.
Sweet.
But they learned about you, not the band we were talking about.
Yeah, good question. I need to look a little deeper into this.
I'm going to text him after the show here.
Yeah, I did hear somebody make a comment similar to that too. It's like, oh, this is just fun learning about my friends.
Our three friends.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Most memorable show for me, probably Prince Purple Rain tour.
Wow.
This was 1984. He did 4 sold-out shows. Might even been 5. I'd have to double check. At the old St. Paul Civic Center, right on the site of where the XL Energy Center is now, big arena. It was at the height of his popularity. Purple Rain had been out the previous summer, the movie. The soundtrack was, how many weeks at number 1. And I went to 2 of those shows.
2?
Yeah.
Wow.
Lucky me. I remember it was the week of Christmas. And then the week after Christmas, he kind of split it up. I think he had a day before Christmas Eve. He had a Christmas Eve show. And then he had a couple shows after Christmas as well. And I think the coolest thing about that is because it was such a big album at the time, you knew the words to every song. You knew every nuance of the songs because everybody was listening to Purple Rain at the time.
Yep.
And the way he came out on the stage too, it was the opening chords of Let's Go Crazy, the organ, and everybody's going nuts. I mean, it was probably the loudest show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I remember he said, "My name is Prince and I've come to play with you."
Yes.
And everybody's going nuts. And the lights, I mean, he had a lot of production at that show too. And it was something I'll never forget. And that tour, they just released I don't know if you remember, MTV did a live worldwide, I think it was the first worldwide broadcast of a live concert from, I believe it was somewhere in New York, Syracuse, New York, the Carrier Dome at Syracuse University. So if you want to see what that show was like, and they just I want to say remastered, but they recolorized. Yeah, the video looks much better than the original.
Yeah, that'd be fun to see.
So you get kind of a look at what that show was. So that was super memorable. That was really cool growing up in the Twin Cities at that time. In fact, I guess it was the summer of my sophomore year in college. I was on a survey crew, put stakes in the ground for sewer systems and that sort of thing. And we worked in the western suburbs. Eden Prairie, Chanhassen. Chanhassen was where Prince lived. One day we were on Flying Cloud Drive in Eden Prairie, and here comes a Corvette. And wouldn't you know it, it's Prince driving a Corvette.
Was it little red?
It was not red. It was not red.
Disappointing.
And I remember the 2 guys
Fake news.
The 2 guys on the survey crew that I was with. I'm like, guys, that was Prince. And they're like, who's Prince?
Oh,
they're
You
like
guys are dead to me.
20 years older than me.
Yeah.
And, if it was John Denver, they'd probably be excited. But that was a really cool moment. And I've heard other stories of people seeing him, pumping gas in his car or at a McDonald's or
Hometown hero.
Yeah. They just renamed part of Highway 5 Prince Rogers Nelson Memorial Highway in Chanhassen and Eden Prairie.
That's really cool.
Did Morris Day open up for him?
The first time I saw Prince, the time opened up for him. The second time it was Sheila E.
Okay.
And she was pretty big. The album, The Glamorous Life, which Prince produced. Yep. So she was the opening, and that was a very good opening act too. But yeah, the first time on the 1999 tour, it was a girl group called Vanity Six.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
Yep. And then The Time, and talk about choreographed. The Time too were really cool to watch. I mean, there's some cool dudes.
Yeah,
Cool in the Gang.
Cool in the Gang. Were you with me at Kool and the Gang?
Kool and the Gang
for Van Halen.
What a weird combination that was.
And they were awesome.
Yeah.
I just loved it. And I was kind of curious, like, if the crowd would be there for the opening act. It was pretty much full for Kool and the Gang.
Really?
Yeah.
We were celebrating.
Oh man. That was impressive. And I think, Kool was the only like original member, but that was a really fun show.
I'd love to go back and look at the set list of what they played that night. Need to do that sometime.
Yeah. What do you miss most about concerts from years past, or how do you think they've changed? We're going to start with Brian.
Ooh.
Did I surprise you?
I miss the bands being younger.
That's the best. All right, moving on.
Yep.
I mean,
we can just go to the next question. We
answer.
all agree.
No,
great
what's
answer.
funny though is sometimes these bands didn't sound as good back then. They may sound better now, or maybe not now, but maybe, 10, 15 years later, the concerts sound better than they did when they were at their peak.
yeah.
Due to drugs and alcohol and many other things that, they maybe weren't putting on their best performances at the time. So that things that are different, is that what you kind of said? Was that between
How do you
now
think
and
they've
then?
changed?
Well,
Or what do you miss most about from
I don't
years
know.
past?
I know setup is so much faster now. I remember back in the 80s, between bands, it took forever when they're tearing apart a stage, setting up other stuff. I mean, you could wait over an hour easily. Now they seem to be pretty quick.
It's because they want to get to bed.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But talk about age.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably less things to set up and
They
break
do.
down too. There's,
Yeah.
I mean, lean and mean equipment.
Right.
The
sound is so much better now.
Yeah.
No doubt.
For
Yep.
sure. It's not as loud, and I appreciate that.
I do miss the lighters at the shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
The phone thing just doesn't do it for me. I remember I was not a smoker or a toker, so I had to go out and buy a lighter that I used to I had a lighter
concert
that
lighter?
I would bring to concerts. I think I still have it.
I remember when I was in college, we had some family friends that had some kids that were a little bit younger than me, and their dad asked if I would take them to a Poison and must have been Warrant. I think it was Poison and Warrant that toured together. And I remember him asking, "Now, what's this about lighters at the concert?" The kids were telling me they needed me to pick up some lighters. Like, yep, you do.
You do, yep.
One thing I miss about concerts past, you talk about stages and the setup, the lighting rigs at those shows were so awesome because nowadays we've got the LEDs that can change colors and there's not all that stuff hanging. It was really impressive. You knew it was a really big band when they had a huge lighting rig up there. Few of them that come to mind, I think Journey had a really cool lighting rig when I saw them on the Frontiers tour. Prince had an awesome lighting rig. And then, they used to have, and maybe they were functional, maybe they weren't, but all the amps stacked on the stage.
Back wall.
Yeah. I mean, you go to a show now and you've got
Everything's up
one
above.
mic and a little amp, and then you've got, the small speakers hanging, so you don't have these massive walls. And that was impressive. You just, this is really cool. They must be a pretty big band too if they've got this massive wall of amps there.
This
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, it sprung a couple memories. I don't know if you remember, like before like in between acts, and then you would see the guys going up with the spotlights, and they'd be going up on cables or whatever, pulling them up, and you'd have like 8 or 9 guys that are up above with spotlights,
and it was
showing on the people.
Right. And it was when you saw them going up, you thought, we're getting close to the start of the show. And then you start to get excited.
The other thing was smoke.
Yeah.
Now they're pumping out,
Artificial
fog,
smoke.
artificial
fog,
smoke.
yeah.
Before, all the people smoking, whatever they were smoking in the stadiums was enough to have the cool effect with the lights. So you could see them.
There was quite a haze in the
Oh,
arenas.
yes, there were.
I actually miss some printed tickets occasionally.
Yes. Yep.
We're getting so many electronic tickets. You're just scanning, they just have an electronic scanner for them. You'd mentioned phones too, and they don't do it for the lighters, but I'd kind of miss not just having those
Yeah.
at all.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of fun to just view the concert without seeing a lot of screens in your way.
Right.
And that's maybe an old fogey
Yeah.
kind of comment, but it is kind of nice
Yep.
to not see just constant screens in your way.
Yep.
You know,
There are some acts that weren't they basically taking your phone as you went in?
Yeah.
For a while?
Bag them or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the artist now, but there was one where you'd like check it into and put it in a bag. And if you could keep the bag with you though.
Yeah.
But it was
But it
basically
was
like
locked.
a dampening type of thing. And then you could go unlock it in a certain zone, like out in the lobby somewhere to use it if you needed to use it. But you could keep it with you. So you had it, but it was basically like locked away.
Sounds like Pearl Jam.
It does sound like Pearl Jam.
It wasn't Pearl Jam though. I can't
know.
remember who it was.
Yeah,
now.
I know. I remember that. Hearing about that.
It was
too.
like it wasn't Jack White either. I can't remember who it was, but yeah. And if I was a little younger, I would really appreciate not having seats in like the middle area by the stage. Because I kind of like that as a younger guy with festival seating, which wasn't seating. It was just a big open area, right? Because you could just kind of work your way around closer or, find a sweet spot for the sound or,
right.
I kind of missed that to a certain extent.
But the sound is so much better now. That's amazing.
Yeah. It is really enjoyable.
You don't usually hear bad sound at a concert anymore. And that used to be pretty typical.
Yeah.
And it's just loud enough that you can't hear people around you, but it's not so loud that you can't understand, where the performer is saying in between songs. Or
Dave and I were at a Sammy Hagar concert, and it was outside, and it was so windy that the sound was blowing all over the place. So sometimes you could hardly hear it, and it makes it awful to sing along because you hear everybody around you singing, and then everybody's singing horribly because you don't have the loud sound to drown everybody out.
Yeah. That was not awesome.
Yeah.
Because probably a third of the concert, it was kind of like that.
Yeah.
Worst experience at a concert. I'll start this one off because it's a real quick story. When we talked about Bon Jovi, they finally came to where I lived. We get to the parking lot and heading into the concert, and I realize I don't have my keys. I just locked him in the car. So like the whole concert off and on, I'm
Just
worried
call your
about-
mom.
I'm worried about how am I going to get back in my car? So it had nothing to do with the concert, but it was the worst experience at a concert because the whole time, just in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh God, I got this problem to solve and I have no idea how I'm going to solve it.
And how did you solve it?
Well, it turns out that I had a Z28 T-top, and they're glass T-tops, and you can pull them up a few inches. And my brother, who was younger than I was, had slightly skinnier arms and reached in and unlocked the T-top, and we just popped it open.
Skinnier than you, Dave?
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
And this is a young skinny to me.
we were
I
all,
was like,
we
wow,
were all
that's
skinny at one
That's
time.
pretty nice.
Well, that was really cool to know, but also a little terrifying
Yeah,
because anybody could
Everybody's
probably
doing
break into
that.
my car now if they knew had that little trick. Yeah.
Worst experience for me was probably the Smashing Pumpkins. We already talked about that because
Yeah.
that was just so hard to pay attention. And you just trying to live, stay alive.
It made it hard listening.
alive.
Yeah.
Staying
Yeah.
alive.
It just made it really hard trying to listen to music.
So very unenjoyable.
Yeah.
For me, I think the worst concert experience was, I mentioned the Eddie Money 38 Special. It was an outdoor show at a place called Navy Island, downtown St. Paul. So it was a little island in the middle of the Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did they pack the people in there. And we got there. We were one of the first to go in. So we were right up against the stage, which was cool until you start getting crushed against the stage. You got, hands in your face. And I just kind of lost it. And it was the closest I've ever gotten. It was the closest I've ever been to getting in a fight at a concert. But I, held my cool, and we just said, we got to get out of here. But what was really interesting about moving back after that weird experience up front was how loud it was at the back
Behind you.
to being
Yeah.
compared to being between the walls of speakers where the sound was awesome. So not only was it bad because I was getting crushed, but then the rest of the show was so doggone loud that it wasn't any fun to be at either. So that is definitely the worst experience.
Yeah.
before earplugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember, ears ringing for a day or two sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Most underwhelming performance by a band or singer at a concert. I think the last show I saw when Rat played in Mankato, Dokken opened up. Dokken's voice was shot.
Yes.
Totally shot.
Yep.
Like he wasn't doing anything even remotely high.
Yep.
And almost just singing.
Yes.
And then Rat came out. And I think already before I'd seen the last show prior to this one, he was kind of on the edge of like not doing a whole lot of singing and letting the crowd do a lot of singing. But this was like the worst.
Yeah.
And he sounded horrible. He was barely singing much himself, not doing hardly anything high. I think his voice was pretty well shot too. And so I'm like, it's just so disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah.
After seeing him really perform well in the even early 2000s or mid 2000s,
Right.
it just went straight downhill. I'm like, this is the last time. This is the last time I'm seeing him.
And he's still out there right now.
He's still doing shows.
We saw them one time, must have been in the early 2000s, but it was with a different singer with Rat. And I think I remember that sounded pretty good.
That did actually sound really good.
Jizzy Pearl or something like that.
Yeah.
Does that sound?
Because that was the Warren DeMartini show, basically.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they sounded good on that.
Yeah.
And I've seen Warrant 3 times. One time in a bar with a different singer, one time with the original singer, and then just last year with a different singer. So 3 different singers. The original singer was the absolute worst. Just terrible. Sounded awful.
He didn't take care of himself.
No, he did not.
Yeah.
And his singing was bad. He was changing the lyrics on all these songs and just swearing up and down. That was a disappointing concert, Dave.
Yeah.
I could go back and do that. So Warrant as a band sounded great. Singers, the other 2 non-original singers were far better.
Yeah, that one we saw at Buster's in town
Buster's,
here. That was a really good concert.
New Year's Eve show.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys saw Warren on New Year's Eve, and so did I, in different places.
Yeah.
Different years. Fun.
Yeah.
Most underwhelming show. There's been a few, but probably the most recent is the one I remember the most, obviously. Lindsey Buckingham. And no offense to my buddies that I went to the show with, a couple high school friends of mine. Hopefully they're not offended. But yeah, I didn't know a ton of his solo stuff. His voice was not where it was years ago. He changed some arrangements. His guitar prowess is not what it used to be. It was just kind of it's fun to see an icon like Lindsey Buckingham.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most disappointing part of it, though, is he didn't play Holiday Road.
Oh, no.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Vacation. Come on.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yep.
Come on, Dave. You're the movie guy.
Yeah, I knew that.
I know.
You're sad that I didn't get to it first?
Yeah, come on.
Holiday Road.
That's the one.
Yep. All right. Thoughts on stadium shows?
Good and bad. Sometimes they're just too big and the sound isn't always that great. You're playing in places that really aren't meant for that. Outside concerts generally don't sound as good anyway.
In a stadium, for sure.
Yeah.
In an amphitheater, they're pretty good.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So they're fun. Sometimes they're too long. I mean, you could be there all day on some of those, so that gets to be kind of rough. But I've seen 2. One was in 1987, Day on the Green in Oakland, and that was with Motley Crue headlining that one.
How many bands?
There was 4 bands. So first band was Jet Boy. I don't even know they had one song, maybe. Then Poison, and this was when Poison just came out with their album, so they were kind of nobodies.
Yeah.
Then Whitesnake, and this was when Whitesnake was getting really big, except they weren't quite there yet. I remember them playing, basically they got to the last song, which was Still the Night, and he says, all right, here's what everybody came for, this song,
Just laying it out
this
there.
was before, Here I Go Again was even popular and everything.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So they were getting popular, but they weren't at what their peak was. And and then Motley Crue. And I was not, I wasn't that excited to see Motley Crue, but they did put on a good show on that one. And then Monsters of Rock tour in '88. And that was Van Halen headlining. The opening acts were Kingdom Come, then Metallica, Dokken, Scorpions, and then Van Halen.
So wish I was at that one.
So that was
Big
pretty
lineup,
amazing.
right?
A lot of people didn't like Kingdom Come. I liked Kingdom Come. I still do.
Really?
Yeah, their first couple albums, I love them.
Well, that's interesting because they were back then's version of
Greta Van Fleet.
Greta Van Fleet.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't
And they
like
did
Greta
it-
Van Fleet.
I know. And they did that on purpose. I mean, they went in to record this. They said, we want to sound like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was like Bob Rock or someone who recorded them. I can't remember who did that one, but like a big name. And they made them sound like that. So I was a big fan of them. Metallica, I wasn't really a Metallica fan. I remember a few of the songs. This was right before And Justice for All came out. So the album wasn't even out. So they were playing stuff that no one had even heard before the album came out. But Dokken was really good. Scorpions were really good. They were kind of at their peak at that point. And the Van Halen was great. But long show. You know, when you show up at, 11 and then you're there till 10, 11 at night.
Oof,
That's a long
that's
day.
rough. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're out in the sun baking all day.
Reapply.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they all brought sunscreen,
Yeah.
Lance.
and talk about throwing bottles. Somebody had a 2-liter bottle that was like half full of whatever. I don't even know what was in it. That was
I know what was in it. They're called trucker bombs.
that was getting thrown around. That was scary because people
You
were
didn't-
just slinging those things and
No one
hitting
knew.
people in the backs of the head.
Yeah.
And then they would get mad and they'd chuck it back up and someone else would throw it. And that was kind of scary.
So my only experience with stadium shows are indoor stadium shows, and they're not good. U2 and Beck, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Couldn't understand a word they were saying. It just
Sound just bouncing everywhere.
bouncing everywhere. So I did not enjoy that. The other was Metallica, the one we mentioned before, the first show at US Bank Stadium. We were close enough there where the sound was okay, but man, if you go to a stadium show in Minnesota, make sure you're in the first 50 yards of the stage. Otherwise, you're not going to have
The cheap
a great,
tickets.
The cheap tickets, yeah. But those are the only two that I've been to. I would still go to a stadium show if it weren't in an indoor stadium. I think the sound would be much better. I've heard really good things about the first time U2 played an outdoor show in Minnesota at the University of Minnesota football stadium.
Oh, yeah.
That was when they had the rainstorm and lightning, and
Yeah.
they just kept playing. There's some pretty
Footage of
iconic.
that.
Yeah.
I've never been to a stadium show. I mean, they look cool. Speaking of U2, when they're in Sun Devil Stadium on the Rattle and Hum video, I mean, that looked
Mhm.
super awesome.
Mhm.
Right.
Go, I wish it was at that one, but
Yeah.
never been to a stadium show.
Yep.
And, from what I keep hearing from you guys and others, is like, sounds not that awesome.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hit or miss on some of those places.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I would want to go. And especially, if I did, I'd want it to be outdoors or, open air. All right. What's a concert you went into with low expectations, but were blown away?
I went to see Quiet Riot, and that was in Mankato in a bar.
That was with Lance.
Few hundred people there. Original band got together, so all 4 original members. I had very low expectations on that one, and I was just thinking, it'd be fun to go to a show. And this is when all the 80s bands all the grunge bands were huge, and they were nobody, so they're going around playing little places everywhere. And yeah, we went to that, and I was very impressed with that concert. I had a lot of fun at that one.
I agree. That was a great show, and the sound wasn't too bad in
No.
there either for just a
No.
little local bar.
Yep.
And
Kevin Dubrow looked huge to me. I don't know how tall he is, but to me he seemed really tall. And he's standing on the stage, and it's like he's going to hit his head on the ceiling. I mean, this is a small place.
Yeah,
And Yeah, it just seemed larger than life.
How about you, Lance?
Yeah, okay. I've seen Bob Dylan a couple times, and the first time I saw Dylan, it was terrible. Dylan is famous for changing arrangements to the point where you can't even tell what song he's playing. The last time I saw Dylan, though, was a couple years ago, and he was in fine voice, and he was, what is he, 80? The band was tight. He changed arrangements, but it was really a satisfying concert experience. And I went in with super low expectations because of the first time I saw him. But I go to Dylan because he's Dylan.
Yeah.
An icon. He's from our home state. And I really enjoyed that show. So Bob Dylan for me.
What's your feelings on rearranging songs when bands do that?
I don't mind if I can tell what song it is.
He went to the extreme,
he definitely goes to the extreme, and it's kind of like...
Is it more his arrangement or just the way he's singing it?
It's his arrangement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Completely.
I know bands do that, and sometimes it could be cool. Like if you've seen the band a lot of times and they do something different, great. But if you haven't really seen the band and you want to see them do their big hit and they totally rearrange it and it's not what you want to hear, that can be pretty disappointing.
I heard a reggae version of REO doing Keep On Loving You once, and it was awful.
Right.
It's like,
so here you take this huge song that people are dying to hear, and then you do some arrangement, probably because they're sick of doing it too.
Yeah.
And they want to
be the
mix
only
it
reason.
up.
Yeah, they're want to entertain themselves or keep it fresh for them.
What a disappointment.
Yeah.
I think another guy that does that a bit is John Mellencamp. And it's because John Mellencamp's old and cranky and
always cranky.
Yep. played Jack and Diane too many times, so why don't you just sing it for me?
Yeah.
And the arrangements are a little different, but no, I'm not a big fan. But I'm with you, Brian. If it's recognizable enough and it's fun, and they maybe feature a guitarist or feature other members of the band doing a solo as part of the new arrangement, that's kind of cool. To show them off a little bit, but in general, it's not a fun concert experience.
I remember hearing a story, and I believe it was Extreme opening up for Aerosmith, I believe. And Extreme had their big hit with More Than Words. And they were so tired of that song. They just decided when they went on this tour, we're not going to play that song. Oh. And after the show, Steven Tyler, he's like, what are you doing? It's like, you're not playing your biggest song. They're like, oh, we're just sick of it. He's like, these people are paying hard-earned money to come see you play that song, and you're not going to play it for it. So
wonder if they took that to heart.
They did.
Yeah. They did.
And they started playing it.
I was kind of sick of that song too, maybe at that point. But I
that's
get
what people want to hear. If they're going to see Extreme,
yeah.
I mean, that's one of their few songs people probably really know. It got a lot of airplay.
Yeah. And it attracted a different element of fan to that band.
Yeah.
Because you guys know Extreme.
Right. You listen to the rest, you're like, wait a minute.
That song was Extreme for them, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't want to do it, don't put it on the album then.
Right.
Back in 2013, I believe Brian and I went to this show. Lita Ford, Sebastian Bach, Dokken, and Rat. And I'm a big Rat fan, and I like Dokken too. And I wanted to go see those two. We got there right at the end of Lita Ford, and Sebastian Bach was performing. I was never a big Skid Row guy. I didn't know many of their songs, and Sebastian Bach lit it up.
You're going back to the question earlier now.
I know, right?
Like an opening band that blew you away.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did he hold
low expectations? I'm like, I have no expectations for this guy because it's only Sebastian Bach of Skid Row.
Yeah.
And holy cow, did he just rock
the
whole place. If it had a roof, we would have blown it off.
Yeah.
Because his voice sounded amazing. I went back. This is how much of an impact it had on me. I went back and started listening to more Skid Row.
Right.
And like made a playlist of a bunch of Skid Row songs that I now like that he performed at that concert.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of my favorite hair band songs is a Skid Row song. I Remember You.
Yeah.
And I bet he held that note like he does in the studio version. He's got an amazing voice.
Yeah.
But he was really working the crowd too. He would like, stop the concert. You guys aren't rocking hard enough. Get off on this one. Let's go.
Yeah, and then they start the song over again. Yeah.
Head banging, hair swinging, mic swinging. Just swinging it over his head. Oh.
Yeah, you're right.
Fantastic.
That was amazing.
I was just totally blown away.
He blew Dokken and Rad away. And, and they both did good, but not compared to Sebastian Bach.
Before we go, we have to give a shout out to our good friend Benji Eniger for writing and performing our intro-outro music, or as Brian likes to call it,
When Records Ruled theme song.
Yes, I like it. Benji is a music genius.
He's a rocker.
Yes. We can't say enough about how much we appreciate his talent, so thank you, Benji. And that'll do it for today's episode, guys. Thanks for hanging with us. Lance, take us out, man.
Hey, music friends. Thanks for checking out our podcast. In our next episode, we're going to be switching gears a little bit and move back to our album reviews. We're going to be talking about the In Excess album, Kick. If you missed our previous episode, we talked about Dave's very first album, which he purchased, the debut classic by the mighty Van Halen.
Yes.
If you haven't listened to it, jump on over and take a listen.
Yeah, and if you get a chance, leave us a review of the show on your favorite podcast listening app. Give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We can take it.
I can't.
Oh, thanks, Dave. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at When Records Ruled. Check out our Spotify playlist where you can find all the albums that we've talked about in our podcast. And remember, we're not professional music critics or crickets. We're just three guys who like talking music.
Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, don't forget to turn off auto reverse on that Walkman or your batteries will die.
Yes, they will.
See ya.
Long live rock.
See you next time.